The whole world is forced to watch yet another episode of minority oppression, and this time it is happening in Bangladesh towards its minority community, the Hindus, who are facing wanton cruelty in the hands of Muslims who are the majority in the country. And this is not the first time this has happened. It happened many times in the past. And that's why millions of Hindus had to flee from Bangladesh for the safety of their lives. Their population dwindled significantly over the past few decades, coming to a mere 8% in the present days. There are many reports that people have been lynched, beaten to death on the street, hunted down by their neighbors. Their women have been abducted from their homes in front of their parents. Temples have been destroyed, idols desecrated, houses have been set on fire at the middle of the night, shops have been looted, and the victims of these atrocities are targeted mostly because they are Hindus. And this systematic genocide of the Hindus, this ethnic cleansing, the stealing of the land and properties of the indigenous people is a typical behavior towards the minorities in Muslim majority country all over the world. Indian subcontinent have been divided into parts, whether it's Afghanistan or Pakistan or Bangladesh. All of these areas were once populated by the people coming from Indic civilization. And because of many failed policies and of course not recognizing the evil purposefully in many cases has ultimately led to this pogrom, this genocide of the indigenous population of Hindus in their ancestral homeland. And this minority oppression is definitely not one of a kind. Just a couple of years ago, it was the Yazidis who faced near extermination in the hands of the Muslims in the Middle East, in Iraq. The savages of ISIS, a bunch of marauding thugs, fell upon a group of completely innocent civilians only because of their faith. Many children are put into cages to be burned alive, and in many cases they were raped to death. Even today, these inhuman barbarism and torture, the horrors of these atrocities are still being carried out. Just before making this video, I came across a report where this barbarism is still being perpetrated by these savages.
This tent, though, a woman called Kovan says she's Yazidi. The soldiers pull down her scarf. They're wary of walking into a trap. Outside, there are more keeping guard. ISIS attacks against them are frequent. Kovan has 2 children with her, born from rape by different IS fighters. She puts on her burqa. She's fearful of an IS attack even with her heavily armed rescuers. There are nearly 3,000 Yazidi women still thought to be enslaved somewhere. And along with Kovan, the troops round up other women and their children who they believe may also be Yazidi, but are too terrified to admit that amongst IS loyalists. They'll all be investigated well away from Al-Ol camp to determine exactly who they are. ISIS embarked on an orgy.
And just a few months ago, when the terrorists from Gaza, those savages of Hamas, invaded Israel, completely unprovoked, massacring completely innocent civilians in the most sadistic and barbaric ways possible, who were partying and celebrating their holidays, targeted only because they were Jews, the whole world had to witness one of the most brutal and savage atrocities in the recent times. It was the Black Saturday, October the 7th, 2023. Babies were beheaded. The entire family were burned alive. The parents had to witness atrocities committed towards their children, whose hands would be chopped off in front of their eyes. The children had to witness the eyes of the father to be gouged out, mother being gang raped. Men, women, children, and even babies were taken as hostages into the terror dungeon of Gaza. Many have been forced to witness the brutal killings of their loved ones while held in captivity. This was the 7th of October 2023, the Black Saturday. But what if I tell you that this Black Saturday happened many times, thousands of times, almost on a daily basis for about 9 months. In 1971 alone, by the Muslims towards the Hindus in Bangladesh. Nearly 2.5 million Hindus were massacred within this short interval. They were compared as scum and vermin. The military were given order to engage in an orgy of violence against the Hindus only because of their faith. In one case, some 12,000 Hindus were murdered in one afternoon in an area called Chuknagar. On many occasions, babies were bayoneted, men were bludgeoned to death, women were gang raped. There are instances when Hindus were hunted down by the neighbors, the same people whom they grew up with, whom they went to the school as young adults. These were the people who hunted their fellow Hindu neighbors and rounded them up in a school field and brush fired them and doused them in kerosene after gunning them down. The same neighbors then came to the houses and gang raped the women and children, some of whom probably used to call them uncles. We must not remain silent as these barbarians once again tortured the minorities. I am glad to see our Jewish brothers and sisters are showing their solidarity in support of the Hindus of Bangladesh, which, frankly speaking, warms my heart. Also, many Christians have raised their concern too. As minorities, we share many episodes of trauma, many sufferings and genocides in the hands of Muslims. The Jews and Christians from all over the Middle East, who have been driven out of their ancestral land and brought almost to a point of extermination over a period of 1,000 years or so, makes me wonder whether humanity is still alive. Can we still dare to dream a day when the horrors of the past, the sheer atrocities committed in the name of religion, are finally brought to justice? The victims of these sheer atrocities, these heinous crimes against humanity, deserve nothing less.